Welcome friends to another 40k video. Today we explore the origins of the Black Templars in the aftermath of the Horus Heresy. We'll be drawing on an old Black Templar codex for most of them. We're also going to touch on some of the recruitment. Without the guidance of the God Emperor, many human renegades and predatory Xeno races sought to plunder the reeling worlds of his realm. In these dark times of anarchy and confusion, the greatest heroes of mankind came to the fore. The Space Marines. The surviving Primarchs and their Marines fought like warriors of legend, holding the scattered defenders of humanity together through these nightmare days. With the threat of extinction looming over the Emperor's Imperium, they fought back and managed to lift it off. And it was then, when the future is clearer, that Rabute Gilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines Legion, devised a military organization that would spread the power of the Legiones Astartes, Imperial Navy and Imperial Army across the galaxy. So no longer would one individual wield the power of a legion. Again, a lesson learned from giving so much power to Horus, clearly. For the Space Marines, these rules were laid down in the Codex Astartes, a mighty tome that also dealt with unit organization, markings, tactical doctrine, and all other aspects of the Space Marines structure. And it is within this, you'll see shortly, the Black Templars were born. The existing legions were to be broken up into chapters, known as the Second Founding. Each chapter would be 1,000 battle brothers strong and look to its own recruitment, training and equipment. Each would take for itself a homeworld, fortress, monastery or fleet, and stand by ready to defend the Imperium from all threats. Rogel Dawn, who had coordinated the defence of Holy Terror, refused to have his legion broken down into smaller chapters, stating that it was his sacred duty to protect the Emperor and that he could not afford his forces across the Imperium. Dawn called Gilliman a coward, for the Ultramarines had not participated in the defence of the Imperial Palace, while Gilliman accused Dawn of being a rebel for refusing the dictates within his Codex Astartes. Dawn would not relent, and neither would Gilliman. Leman Russ of the Space Wolves and Vulcan of the Salamanders agreed with Dawn, for they too did not want their legions scattered to the corners of the galaxy. But Corax the Raven Guard and Jagatai Khan of the White Scars backed the Ultramarines. In the gulf left after the near death of the Emperor, it seemed the Marines were again destined to tear themselves apart in bloody conflict. When the Imperial Fists were violently persecuted for their supposed heresies, and the strike cruiser Terrible Angel was fired upon by the Imperial Navy, it was almost inevitable that once more war would engulf the Space Marines themselves and the Imperium. But even as the newly formed chapters and the old legions were preparing for battle, Dawn finally relented, perhaps seeing in his fallen brother a warning of what could be the future again. He agreed to the formation of the two new chapters from his legion, the Crimson Fists and, we've got there, the Black Templars, will be split up off from the Imperial Fists chapter and forged their own path. He chose the champion, Sigismund, the legendary swordsman, to lead the Black Templars, and the chapter took upon themselves the black and white panoply of his personal heraldry. Sigismund has been chosen as the Emperor's champion for his fervent faith in the Emperor and his undying devotion to mankind, and those warriors who became Black Templars did so seeking to follow his heroic example. They were inspired by him, this figure, seeing the strife that currently beset the Legiones Astartes and the suspicion in which he and his brethren were held. He determined that a gesture of supreme faith was needed. As High Marshal of the Black Templars, Sigismund swore a mighty oath that upon leaving Terror, he would prove his loyalty, never resting in the persecution of his duties against the enemies of the Emperor. It is an oath that every subsequent High Marshal has renewed, and so the greatest and longest Space Marine crusade was begun, a crusade that has continued unbroken for 10,000 years. Now, despite being formed by Dawn in the aftermath of Rabute and his codex, how he thinks everyone should operate, the Black Templars chose not to adhere to the Codex Astartes, and, following the oath of Sigismund, the chapter embarked upon its crusade, issuing the idea of homeworld and living aboard their crusade fleets, made up of dozens of battle barges, strike cruisers, and other craft. The High Marshal himself had his own battle barge, the Eternal Crusader, a huge vessel that is the spiritual home of the chapter and contains its most sacred relics, chapels, and reliquaries. It has been expanded and refitted many times over 10,000 years, with extra docking facilities and other improvements made to it. Now, because they are a chapter that travels in fleets, the Black Templars are rarely assembled as a chapter, but are instead divided into a number of crusades. There are usually around 3 of these going on at any one time, and the Black Templars' history shows that during the treachery of Dalmark, there were as many as 14 crusades fighting across the Segmentum Solar. Only the High Marshal himself knows how many Black Templars are fighting in crusades at any one time, but there are more of them than most conventional chapters, but they are widely dispersed. If they are all united, it's estimated there will be between 5,000 to 6,000 of them. Now, certain members of the Inquisition have stuck their noses in on the Black Templars' business and have expressed concern over the potential size of the chapter, but since they have a long record of service and no signs of disloyalty, the Inquisition has not been able to dig deep into the Black Templars. Now, these crusades, they simply continue the mission as started by Sigismund of actively seeking out the enemies of the Emperor and destroying them, and then moving on to the next foe. But they do have a certain fanaticism to them. They lust to crush the enemies of mankind and profess absolutely no tolerance for heretics, mutants, warlocks, aliens, or any other abominations against the Emperor. And because of this, and as an extension of it, the Black Templars have no librarians. The mistrust of the powers of the warp extends to their own numbers. They simply wouldn't fight alongside a witch. Now, during the Crusade, because they have people that fall, on each conquered or reclaimed world, the Black Templars established chapter keeps, grim fortresses that serve as potent reminders that the Emperor is ever watchful. However, the main purpose of the chapter keeps is to recruit new Space Marines from the population and act as staging posts for mustering the Crusade together. Because they're all split up, it's not clear exactly how they communicate, but it's speculated that the Black Templars may make use of navigators and astropaths, despite them not wanting to use librarians. There may be simple practicalities they have to accept to employ such a large force dispersed over such a large area. They have to be pragmatic. So now we've covered how they're created, how they operate. Let's look a little at the recruitment. This isn't going to be a massive breakdown of how the Space Marines are inducted and indoctrinated. It's going to be more specific to the Black Templars. When the Black Templars select a potential recruit for training, they accept a new son into their family, and it's so fitting, therefore, that they take the greatest care in selection. New recruits are taken in by the chapter keeps of the Black Templars, and the masters of these keeps subject the recruits to the most punishing selection regime imaginable to determine their suitability for initiation. The chapter apothecaries examine the flesh of the new recruits down to the cellular level to ensure that they are free of the taint of mutation and strong enough to survive their training and the implantation of the organs. Vital to this, their warrior spirits are also looked at to ensure they're worthy of the chapter's trust, because only humanity's best can be brought into the brotherhood of the Space Marines and the Black Templars. Once the recruit begins his training, he becomes a neophyte and severs all links with the world of his birth and his family to begin a lifetime dedication to the service of the Emperor and the Black Templars. He will become one of the greatest warriors of humanity, though it won't be that human by the end of his training and when he becomes a full Space Marine. They may have given up any chance of a normal life, but they do this willingly. So in this last section, we'll tell you that the neophytes train within the chapter keep, and once they are deemed ready, they are transported to one of the Black Templar crusades, where their worth is again judged, this time by the chapter's battle brothers, warriors known as initiates, who will train them further. Each initiate takes it upon himself to train a neophyte in the art of war and the rituals of the Black Templars. The neophytes act as servants to their master, waiting on them at their great banquets and sing to domestic chores. Whilst on the battlefield, the initiate teaches their young pupil through example. This means that the Black Templars have no dedicated scout company or other chapters do. Instead, their neophytes are trained in a wide variety of combat situations and receive personal attention and tuition from the initiate. They also learn about the history of the chapter itself. And it's around this time they will begin the long and arduous process of the implantation of the organs and the gene seed, and eventually the black carapace. This makes the armour of a Space Marine a natural extension of their body. It's a ceremony of great reverence. The newly elevated initiate is honoured with his ancient suit of artificer-forged armour, which is his and his alone unto death. He's now truly a Black Templar, possessed of great power, but sworn to use it only in the service of the Master of Mankind, the Emperor. And on that glorious note, friends, I'll wrap up today's video on the Black Templars, their origins, and the training and recruitment that neophytes undergo.